Hey guys, and welcome to Rift New Player Guide in 2019. I noticed that the last New Player Guide made by 91 Extreme RT was made, just a little bit ago. So I thought it might be handy to pass down some new information regarding the state of the game and where it's at, and hopefully this video will serve as a sort of guide with tips and tricks to help ease out the new player experience and maybe fill some gaps in knowledge of people who are returning after maybe a long time. Alright, so let's get started. Right off the bat, the first thing I want to mention, which is a super handy tip, is if you need to sell anything in your bags, you can just do so from the Rift store. You can just click on any tab and then right click on anything in your inventory and it'll be sold. Super handy. No need to visit merchants and the like throughout the open world. Tying into the open world, you'll probably notice that the world's a little quiet, especially when you're leveling, perhaps in Storm Legion and Nightmare Tide especially, as you'll probably only be running into NPCs through your travels. That's because right now, the best and fastest way of leveling is through instant adventures. Dungeons are a close second, but they fall far back in popularity in terms of IAs. So in order to get into an instant adventure, just press period. You'll probably want to do Intrepid Adventures, which will throw you into a raid and offer a little more experience, but also Instant Adventures will take you around the world. Celestial Adventures are for 65 to 70 players only. Inside an IA, you're basically teleported around the world to do various random activities. So if we check our map, right now we're down here killing this thing. Hopefully, well, I didn't get there in time. But there's almost like 15 people. Oh, we're already teleported away to the next area. Bad timing. And now we're here in City Core, in the middle of nowhere. So if you're craving that leveling experience with friends, or in a group settings, that way you're not alone, and you want to travel around the world and see places, instant adventures are absolutely the way to go. They're fast, fun-paced, take you around the world to visit different scenarios. Right, and there we go. We'll be moved on to the next quest, but instead we're gonna bounce on out of here. And we'll be taken right back to where we were, chilling in Silverwood. Speaking of the world, the next thing I wanted to mention are these big green things. These are called porticulums, or porticolums, and they are your travel around the world. Here we have Mythosia, the original base game, Storm Legion, the second expansion, the Plane of Water, the third expansion, and recently the Prophecy of Von Ket, the fourth expansion. All of these little green dots are places you can teleport to, and in order to unlock these you have to travel to their location in the world. For old world ones, you have to go up and right click on the actual porticulum person, but in Storm Legion and after you just have to be in proximity. You'll know when you unlock one because a halo of green rings will appear around your character. Traveling in a porticulum to your home cities doesn't cost money, however, traveling to anywhere else will. As you can see, teleporting to Shal Corva will cost 85 gold. As you progress in Rift and level, especially if you're using instant adventures, you'll hit level 50 probably very quickly, and at level 50 you'll unlock something very specific. I believe you'll receive an in-game mail that'll tell you to visit a chronicle called the Ceremony of Attunement, with the prefix of your faction city. Meridian for Defiance, Sanctum for Guardians. This is important, as completing that Ceremony of Attunement unlocks your Planar Attunement. This, on top of your 75 levels, is an additional 1700 levels you gain passively. You don't have to do anything special for the experience in order to level up these trees. All you need to do is continue regular activities. I bring this up because I wanted to point out something very specific in the death tree that you may want to keep your eye out for. You can level up your Attunement of Death to unlock Vampiric Essence, which is very useful for soloing if you're finding yourself lacking health when fighting mobs. This gives you on-hit chance of 20% to receive back 10% of the damage you did as healing. Despite the fact that this was added back in forever ago, it's still very relevant today as soloing, especially for my class, the Primalist. Speaking of classes, you might be wondering, what class should I pick? I see warriors, clerics, mages, and rogues, as well as, curiously, primalists, which are locked behind a paywall. To answer that question, Rift follows the Holy Trinity system +1. That means tank, DPS, and healer +1, which would be support. Support's main goal in the formula is to either buff DPS or buff player survivability and health. Currently in the game, every of the 5 classes can do all 4 of the Holy Trinity +1 roles. However, some can perform them without the purchase of DLC content. For example, warriors can tank and DPS and support without any DLC. However, if you want a warrior that can heal, you will need to purchase DLC content. Same goes for mages tanking, rogues healing, clerics for support, and primalists, kind of as the whole class sort of deal. This might seem like a lot of things you have to purchase. However, at the very tail end of the video, I will give you a strong recommendation as to, if you do want to purchase something, what you should purchase and probably in what order, to give you the most bang for your buck. Okay, so perhaps that's quelled your fear about what class to choose, but let's say you download the game and you first boot it up and you see a massive list of servers to select from. You probably won't see all of these ones down here, but Greybriar, Seastone, Highlaw, Lathes, Deepwood, Wolfsbane, and Fablight are the primary North American servers. Whichever server you choose doesn't specifically matter. I will get into that in a minute. The only distinction between them is that Seastone is PvP in the open world, and Fablight is RP specifically, which comes with certain naming restrictions on your character. Wolfsbane, Deepwood, Lathes, Highlaw, and Greybriar are standard shards, which is what Rift calls servers. The reason I said your server doesn't matter is because at any time you can transfer any character to any server for free. This is done with simply the transfer button, and you select your server. There is a cooldown between server transfers, however it will be free and always will be free. So I recommend picking a server that your friends are playing on, but don't stress too bad because at any time you can just swap servers. Alright, now that we're back in game, I still want to touch on the last thing of servers. If you right click your name, you can head down here to the teleport shard. At any point in time, you can teleport between any of the shards, or servers, in the open world. This comes with several advantages. If you are hunting, for example, rare mobs, or let's say a quest mob you are looking for has not spawned because someone has recently killed it, you can just hop to a different server, and the quest mob should be up. Alright, so let's say you've created your character, you've chosen your server, you're hanging out with your friends, you load into the game and you realize, hey, wait a second, my UI looks nothing like yours. Why is that? Well, let me explain. Rift, out of the box, comes with Edit Layout button in the Settings Escape menu. This is a very powerful tool which allows you to edit all of the base game assets that are displayed on your screen. As you can see down in the left, I've kind of shunted off everything that I won't ever really use. But you might be asking yourself, hey, my portrait bar looks nothing like yours, and why do you have this blue dot trailing your cursor? And what's this down in the left with all the numbers and stats and bars and stuff? And what is this sort of weird thing? Well, those are add-ons for Rift, which serve various different purposes. The first one you'll primarily see is called Gadgets. So this is a big list of things, but to boil it down, gadgets is like custom UI things. So for example, I use custom player target bars, so I just turn off the old ones and use the add-on ones. There's also live DPS meters, data text bars, group frames for your raid, combo points depending on your class, planar charges, which are a thing you'll run into later on. You can have custom XP bars, and even more depending on which add-ons to the add-ons gadget that you install. Tons of customizability. I won't go super in depth to gadgets, as that can be saved for another video and it's fairly complex, but that's the gist of it. Down here in the bottom left is probably the second most important one, which is called Minion Sender. What are minions? Well, further down the line, you'll run into these little sort of trading card pet creatures you can collect. And if you press, I think it's V, by default, you open up your minions, which lets you send your minions out on adventures and they'll come back with all sorts of goodies. The Minions add-on just manages them all for you, so I just click a button and it'll do everything without my need. So those are two very brief examples of add-ons. There's a lot more add-ons to go over. And further down the line, as you get more comfortable with the game, you might find yourself either needing them or wanting them. And so this ties into probably the next thing you'll notice when you start up the game is, what the heck is this thing? Yours probably looks a little more expanded and more full of things and icons and stuff than mine, and that's because the Primalist is built differently than the other 4 original classes of the game. Essentially, this is your soul tree. This defines what your character can do. You have 3 souls you can choose from out of a total of, I think, 12 or 15 for your class. Souls serve very specific roles. For example, you can have, of the 15 total souls, you can have 2 of them be tank, and maybe 4 of them are DPS, and 2 of them are heal, and 1 of them is support. And you can mix and match between all of those souls, any combination of 3, in order to build the class you want. So for example, I'm a Primal Lord Vulcanist Berserker, which is 2 single target DPS classes mixed with an AoE one, which I don't have any points in. By default, Rift sets you up with a preset, which is a good way to get started in the game because it'll spend your points as you level up for you. But if you want to dive right in, you can just close in the bottom right and start spending your points manually. You spend them up in the top portion of the tree to unlock bottom abilities. From levels 1 to 60, you will be using this tree for all your abilities. 61 to 65, you will unlock masteries, which are a choice between 4 abilities per level, which have varying stats and benefits you can choose from. And lastly, from 66 to 70, you can choose 5 legendary point abilities that tie back into your trees for legendary versions of abilities. The last thing to go over is maybe you have a preset you want, but you want a separate preset, like you have your nice tank build, and maybe you get a healer build, and then you want something for open world, for survivability and DPS mix. That's where the roles come in. As you can see, I have a lot. You just click buy new role, and then you can swap to any role that you have. Let me get out of combat. So I'm currently in my DPS build, and I'll swap to my heal build. And now I'm a healer. Alright, that was a very fast and very surface level rundown of the soul ability in trees and all the sort of player growth and mishmash of all the things you can choose from. Hopefully you gleaned some information from that. It's a system that takes some time to get used to, but when you finally understand it, it becomes sort of like second nature. Alright, so I've covered a lot in this video, and I think that's a good wrapping up point to wrap up the big summarization portion of the video. I mentioned earlier that I would give you a recommendation if you wanted to purchase something. What should you purchase? And here it is. In the Rift store, if you go to DLC, there is the Ascended Essentials pack for 6,000 credits. Now, what is the purpose of this pack? This pack unlocks additional character slots per server, it unlocks more bag slots, and it unlocks all of the DLC souls and the Primalist class and all of its souls as well. I believe it's around $40. If you are to purchase anything in Rift and want to ensure that your purchase gives you the most value and the most bang for your buck, this is absolutely it, as it will unlock basically everything for any of your characters to do and will reduce any limitations that you might run into in terms of your class. Before you make this purchase though, you might notice this gray text down at the bottom, 5,400 credits for patrons. That's because patrons get a discount on anything in the store. Being a patron offers a lot of benefits. That's the easiest way to summarize it. It's absolutely not required to do anything end game. I am at the very end of the game and I haven't been a patron for a long time. However, being a patron makes the experience a fair amount easier, especially leveling, because you get a pretty substantial experience boost. So if you're looking to get the absolute easiest introduction to Rift with as much leniency as possible and having as many opportunities as possible, you're looking at $55 between everything. I strongly recommend though that you wait and experience the game and level a character a fair amount in order to get a feel for the game and see if it's something you actually want to spend money on. And that's essentially it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'll see if I can answer them. Or I have an Ascend a Friend link down below as well. A Send a Friend offers you several rewards if you sign up, as well as adding you directly to my friends list so you can message me in game if you have any questions. That's been it. I've been Nino, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy the world of Telara.